Hello and welcome to this video series on the Power BI Adoption Framework, which is about empowering every decision maker. I'm Manu.
And I'm Paul.
In this video, we'll talk about how you can implement governance. When creating and implementing a governance plan, you need to consider the requirements of IT, security, and the business to make sure that it will work for everyone. Every organization is different, and governance needs to be customized for a specific environment and culture to make it successful. To help drive the usage of a governance strategy, it helps to align it with the organizational principles or goals, such as promoting data discovery, self-service BI, or to become a data-driven organization. When creating a plan that encompasses various business groups, different data sets, corporate and self-service BI, you need to identify ownership of business information. As well as defining who has access to see this data and how users can request access, ideally, you would also define individuals that can span across these different groups and help define how these disparate data assets can be joined up to enable reporting across the organization. Within your organization, there may be a number of different reporting requirements and potentially even reporting tools, be it for corporate or self-service BI. Power BI can help with data mining, data analysis, and reporting on operational databases or warehouses. In reality, we live in a bring-your-own reporting tool world. Having a single tool in a large organization is not necessarily possible if you want individuals to be successful with their data by using the tools that they are comfortable with. Data governance is about balancing centralized control with decentralized empowerment for different data discovery and reporting requirements, and creating a strategy that is flexible enough for the departments and individuals creating these solutions. Without a shared sense of ownership, BI governance is very difficult to implement and maintain. One of the quotes that our internal BI team uses is "discipline at the core, flexibility at the edge," and I love this quote. When we talk about governance models, we can benefit from classifying solutions based on the level of control they require. Your enterprise data warehouse or your corporate KPIs or scorecards are likely to have tighter controls. They might have regulatory compliance requirements or may need to be monitored and audited. That is not something you're going to release out for anybody to change because you don't want individuals to be able to update this data to make their own KPIs look better. You wouldn't want consultants controlling their own consultancy rates, for example. When we start looking at personal or project level reporting, you can relax some of the controls and allow the individual teams to make decisions. The business should have the ability to connect to and mash up data. It might be their own project data or data that someone is investigating. For example, a data scientist exploring data in a data lake or a business user visualizing an Excel file that someone has sent to them. If you're exploring data or trying to find new patterns, you don't want to have controls in place that limit this discovery. Historically, IT has been busy in catching up with the BI demands of the business, and there was a virtual wall between corporate and self-service BI. IT teams would typically pull data from various sources, cleanse it, push it into a warehouse, and build analysis services cubes on top of that. Once the data was ready for consumption, it was delivered to business via reports and dashboards. This process is important for a corporate BI application. However, it takes a long time and businesses need agility. So they created their own tools for BI, and many of these tools were built into Excel using VBA. This wall has broken in the last few years because businesses can now connect to the data sources directly with the help of modern self-service BI tools. But this has led to a question around the balance between control and agility. We believe that Power BI allows you to have a balanced approach. IT can continue to enhance the corporate warehouse by bringing new sources of data while continuing to apply due diligence to ensure that the data is accurate. And at the same time, business users can access data that hasn't yet been provisioned in the corporate warehouse directly and blend it with the data from the corporate warehouse. In due course, IT can apply the due diligence and bring it into the warehouse as well. Power BI is a very flexible set of tools that can be used for data preparation, data modeling, and report development activities. We see three primary approaches to delivery of Power BI solutions. The first one is business-led self-service BI. In this scenario, the business users have the most involvement and control. Although some governed data sources can certainly be utilized as a part of the overall solution, which is encouraged, there can also be non-standard, non-governed data sources involved, such as industry statistics purchased from a third party. This will allow for exploration of patterns that can go well beyond the data that is recorded in the corporate data warehouse. The critical difference here is that the business unit takes ownership and support of this type of solution. The second approach is IT-managed self-service BI. In this scenario, business users utilize Power BI as a reporting layer on standard and governed data sources. In this mode, IT produces and governs a data layer of high quality, which adheres to the conformed enterprise master data. At the same time, the business owns the reporting layer, which may or may not adhere to the same development cycles and governance standards promoted by IT. And the third scenario is corporate BI. This scenario is frequently referred to as enterprise reporting, or sometimes canned reporting, wherein IT has full ownership of the entire solution and releases reports for user consumption. Each of these scenarios can be employed concurrently, depending on the particular requirements and user base. All of these solutions can and often should involve prototyping. There are two main ways to initiate prototyping activities. Business-led prototyping is where Power BI is utilized by business users in their routine day-to-day work. If this type of solution is considered successful, it may capture the attention of the team who manages the corporate BI environment. In this way, the business-generated solution is considered a tactical prototype because a prototype wasn't the original intent, but it ultimately served that purpose and helped improve or augment the corporate BI environment. In case of IT-driven strategic prototyping, IT technology teams purposefully utilize Power BI to discover requirements for enterprise data warehousing and business intelligence projects. When you ask users about their reporting requirements and which data elements they may need, it is not uncommon to hear, "I don't know." This is a strategic use of Power BI, given that many users find it easier to define what they want or what they don't want when interacting with a functional report sample. The advantage of using Power BI in this way is that data warehousing and business intelligence cost and work effort can be dramatically reduced because refactoring is diminished, given that the requirements are more closely aligned to business needs from the early stages of the project. This strategic prototyping activity is also sometimes referred to as active prototyping. Regardless of its origin, Power BI prototypes can be used as functional blueprints that guide subsequent data integration, data modeling, or report development. There are a number of phases of delivery during the development of a business-led self-service BI solution. While self-service BI is typically led by business users rather than IT, it is common for a Power BI champion to perform an assessment to understand the current versus the desired state. This first phase is typically a one-time effort, though a reevaluation at certain intervals may also be helpful. As an important outcome of this phase, the Power BI champion must identify reporting scenarios that are of low complexity but of high value to the business. These scenarios become candidates for prototyping in the next phase of delivery. During phase 2, the Power BI champion leads users in the creation of selected reports which have the potential to become highly relevant to the business. This may involve just the creation of report, or it may also involve data extraction, standardization, modeling, and calculation. These preliminary reports should then be delivered to colleagues and subject matter experts for immediate evaluation and feedback. Receiving feedback quickly is a critical consideration. It is also important to note that some of the early prototypes are experimental in nature and may never actually be used for normal routine business operations or production purposes. Once Power BI prototype has proven its business value, it is published to the collaboration area. The most common area for Power BI is the web-based Power BI service or the on-premises Power BI report server. Although a file share can be used as a publishing destination, it does not offer collaboration capabilities, and this is not a recommended approach. Once the dataset and/or the reports are published, several additional tasks remain, such as creation of dashboards, scheduling data refreshes, verifying sharing and security settings, and documentation. It is uncommon for a new Power BI solution to be perfect in its first iteration. so we recommend that you plan to make incremental improvements. Additionally, as the report grows in popularity, Power BI champions may want to understand usage patterns. This information is very useful, and he or she must allocate time and/or resources for maintaining, augmenting, and growing self-service BI solutions. The fourth phase, after a Power BI report has been running in an automated fashion, is to expand the effort in terms of reach and infrastructure. This is an important phase in which the Power BI champion must lead the way to fully evangelize the vision of a data-driven culture. This can typically be done by sharing of knowledge through techniques such as user groups, lunch and learns, FAQs, Teams, Yammer, or email. A Power BI Center of Excellence can actively collect and categorize internal practices for streamlined reporting and define a vehicle for sharing with others, such as a newsletter or an intranet site. Providing training for Power BI report designers and data modelers, as well as for Power BI report consumers, can be extremely beneficial. Then, in collaboration with IT, define which additional infrastructure layers can increase the quality and relevancy of the Power BI deployment. This can be done by displaying a branded stamp of approval, for instance a logo that symbolizes a production report which has been certified, thus more reliable than a prototype. In terms of improving the quality of data, handling of master data, data quality processes, semantic layer, and other business intelligence components that have the capacity to enhance the value of the solution can be very beneficial. Or you could leverage big data and advanced analytics integration for the purposes of enhancing the value of the solution. The phases of delivery for corporate BI are slightly different. In phase 1, IT gathers requirements, often via interviews, to uncover areas where BI needs are not being met within the scope of an enterprise data warehouse or business intelligence environment. The objective of this phase is to discover high-level requirements that guide strategic prototyping efforts, wherein further details are learned. It is not uncommon to run into scenarios where BI requirements are not clearly understood by IT or even by business users. Strategic prototyping is the process where we leverage Power BI explicitly to seek out feedback from users during a requirements discovery session. A strategic prototyping session must have clearly defined agendas and goals, and it should be led by a Power BI champion. It must have business users in attendance. Individual sessions seek to discover detailed requirements about data sources, data structures, completeness, complexity, semantic interface such as field names, hierarchies, data groupings, calculations and business rules, report layout, and report interactivity requirements such as drill down or drill through. During the prototype deployment, Power BI Champion should discuss use cases with business users who will actually utilize the reports, and also find out how the data is intended to flow before and after the report is generated. New information uncovered during these sessions has the potential to save time and effort during the actual development, which is a great benefit that can reduce the final cost of the project. It is also important to understand that during the strategic prototyping, a certain amount of work will be thrown away. This is an implicit assumption which will ultimately benefit the project by reducing longer refactoring cycles which may occur if requirements are not fully understood. During strategic prototyping, functional Power BI report mockups would have been built. These report mockups will contain important information that will feed into the blueprinting process prior to starting development. Typically, this information will contain new data sources, a complete or partial data model including naming conventions, rules for business calculations and hierarchies, use cases which may influence security or deployment decisions, and specific needs such as exporting, drill down interactivity, or automated scheduling. After blueprinting is complete, using this information as a guide, the business analytics team will decide on the best tool which aligns with the requirements. For example, data transformations done with Power BI Desktop may be replaced by Azure Data Factory data flows or data flows in Power BI if deemed appropriate. Development cycles will adhere to standard IT methodology, following the blueprinting process. Typically, this follows a development, QA, and production cycle wherein the business users are involved with user acceptance testing. In this phase, it is highly desirable to work in iterations, frequently delivering small components of the solution in an agile fashion. Although it is very tempting to wait until the solution is done in order to share the output with business users, that type of waterfall approach is frustrating to business users if they don't see any progress for weeks or months at a time. In the final phase, the Power BI solution has been deployed, it's bringing value to the business, and it is in a support mode. A frequent pain point is when different numbers are produced from self-service reports versus corporate BI reports. So an important element of support is how to reconcile and resolve these types of concerns. Usage monitoring is also a critical element of this phase for performance, security, and for understanding which elements of the environment are most critical. Some companies also find it useful to require attendance of hands-on or virtual training before getting access to a business tool. Beyond the initial training, it is invaluable to provide a data dictionary, which is particularly helpful if there are multiple definitions of certain metrics. It is also very helpful to provide frequently asked questions and short how-to videos. Typically, 2 to 4 minutes is an ideal length for these videos.
There is also a situation in which self-service and corporate BI solutions converge. We call this phase ownership transfer, as it's at this point that IT may fully adopt Power BI reports built by the business, or the business may take the lead of a set of reports that started out as an IT-sponsored project. When Power BI reports developed by the business contain data transformations, data models, or reports that would benefit a larger or wider audience, IT might want to incorporate this into the portfolio of reports they currently provide the business. During the first phase of ownership transfer, Power BI reports can be republished to a workspace shared between IT and business users. This will allow for IT to evaluate and validate the solution. The Power BI report should be evaluated for compliance on its data sources and should be validated to ensure the data model is using IT-supported best practices. These could range from using standardized dimensional models to specific DAX authoring approaches. They should also confirm that visualizations are using corporate branding standards for look and feel, as well as presentation, such as rounding or scaling. If a Power BI report does not pass certification, it will require IT's effort to refactor to ensure compliance. In other words, additional data integration, data warehousing, or data modeling efforts may be needed for IT to take over responsibility for the report and its underlying data. Generally, a work effort assessment would be compared against the value offered by the ownership transfer. Benefits typically range from gaining visibility into a critical BI asset to ensure good practices have been used, to benefiting other users that regularly produce reporting over the same data. If the organization decides ownership transfer is indeed valuable, an IT-controlled development process will ensue to achieve compliance. Once the Power BI report has been certified, IT will publish it to their production workspace and cover it under standard service level agreements. Any further changes will be performed by IT and not by the original business user who authored the report. When republishing this new version, IT can use branding techniques to differentiate between who published the solution. There are a number of reasons that may initiate an ownership transfer from business-led to corporate BI, such as data can be centrally refreshed often more frequently. Data size limits are typically no longer a constraint. Additional security capabilities become available, and the solution can receive formal IT support and fall under existing SLAs. It can also free up business users to continue exploring new data patterns while maintaining other Power BI solutions which are not yet production ready, or an ownership transfer to IT does not make sense for a cost or effort perspective. The process of functional business users adopting corporate BI solutions that will no longer be supported will involve the same phases but with a different perspective. After a strategic prototype has sparked interest within the business and a Power BI champion offers to own it, IT would publish the prototype to a specified workspace. This workspace should only be used for prototypes in process of being transferred to being owned by the business. In Phase 2, the Power BI champion reviews the strategic prototype for compliance with business requirements. Any identified gaps will be solved by using Power BI transformations, modeling, calculations, or reporting features. Once end users feel comfortable with the state of the prototype, they would make use of it to run their business operations and perform analytical tasks. IT will then cease to own the effort completely, given the report is owned by the business. Once a Power BI report has been created using Power BI Desktop, the next question is how do you then collaborate with others and distribute your solution? There are a number of options when it comes to sharing, from app workspaces and apps to mobile devices or static files. Generally, we would recommend that you publish content from Power BI Desktop into an app workspace in the Power BI service. Power BI app workspaces are great places to collaborate with your colleagues on dashboards, reports, and datasets. That's what workspaces are designed for, collaboration. After you finish collaborating on your dashboard and reports with colleagues, then you can package it as an app and distribute it to a wider audience. Individuals can consume this content in a mobile app, or you can embed it within SharePoint, Dynamics 365, or any custom application. Reports or dashboards can also be exported to PowerPoint or PDF, be printed or emailed. When creating corporate BI, development cycles will adhere to standard IT methodology, which typically follows a development to QA to production lifecycle. A separate app workspace should be created for each of these phases, with the relevant individuals deploying the solution manually via Power BI Desktop or programmatically using the Power BI REST API. The overall objective with a governance strategy is to provision software and empower people in the right way to drive a data-driven culture. So how do you assess how close your organization or team is to becoming data-driven? User adoption is a great measure of your success, given that the reports and dashboards are to be consumed by people. Adoption can validate the delivery approach. For example, are people using the tools, and are they using them in the right way? You can assess this by tracking Power BI usage around reports or dashboards, by reviewing the Power BI audit logs, or monitoring use of corporate data sources. The Power BI Admin Center provides usage information across the tenant, and you can use report usage metrics to monitor who, how, and when it is used, or even look at all reports within a workspace. The same can also be done for dashboards. You can also use the Power BI audit log, which can provide a comprehensive view of user activity across your Power BI tenant. Another angle of adoption is buy-in, particularly for C-level executives and line of business heads. A corporate sponsor that understands the benefits of a data-driven culture can help propel the vision of a learning organization, while providing coordination to maneuver political and operational factors. They can also help define a roadmap for user adoption. It's easy to measure this one, because you'll know that you have a corporate sponsorship if you're engaged at that level. Power BI champions help evangelize the vision of rapid and highly valuable reports and dashboards. The more champions you have, the closer you are to a data-driven culture. A successful implementation of Power BI governance would cater for both governed and ungoverned data sources in a way that sets the expectations right, develops process, clarifies roles and responsibilities, and then allows the use of these data sources in the most productive way. Improving data quality, reliability, and accuracy positively impacts innovation and data exploration efforts. To ensure that the governance plan is successful and being adhered to, there are a number of areas that are worth monitoring and measuring. It's important to understand if the system is being used, how frequently, and what are the popular reports or dashboards. This information can be used for security and compliance, identification of support needs, or for identifying critical reports. Security monitoring is important to ensure compliance with regulatory requirements. A critical feature to enable adoption is report performance. In many cases, a well-designed, accurate report is so slow that the perceived value to the users is diminished. Using the Performance Analyzer in Power BI Desktop, you can see and record logs that measure how each of your report elements performs when users interact with them, and which aspects of their performance are most resource intensive. Data source usage information can be used to identify potential flaws in data integrity or even overlap in effort. It's also important to monitor growth of models which have been ported to make sure that they do not exceed any size limitations. BI has evolved massively over the last couple of decades, which means that the approach towards delivering BI has also evolved. Here are a few questions that we may have answered differently 10 years ago, but an agile BI mindset challenges those approaches and enables new ways of working. When thinking about BI adoption, people often talk about a top-down or a bottom-up approach. But with the middle path, IT can become an enabler for business users, and an agile BI governance approach should encourage all three approaches simultaneously. There can be a misconception that a tool or a technology will bring a change in an organization. What we have seen in reality is that it's the people who initiate and drive a change, and technology is there to enable it. All of us make decisions based on data in our day-to-day lives. It should be no different in a work environment. Every employee should have access to data in order to make decisions, and a good governance plan should outline how everyone in the organization will get access to data relevant to them and their role. The agility that Power BI offers for prototyping and even developing solutions really embraces the fail quickly philosophy. Rather than spending months on developing a solution, Power BI allows you to quickly develop solutions, assess its suitability, get feedback, and enhance the solution with an iterative approach. If the first draft just establishes that the data is not meaningful enough and cannot help drive decisions, then so be it. Fail fast and move on to the next solution, as there's no shortage of data. Having a single source of truth for master data can be highly beneficial for self-service BI. For example, having a single repository for all customer data and then using this source for all solutions will ensure consistency and accuracy in data models and reports that are created. There are a number of options when it comes to implementing master data management. One way can be to use Power BI data flows. Using data flows, your organization can map their data to standard entities in the common data model, or create their own custom entities. These entities can then be used as building blocks to create reports, dashboards, and apps, which can be distributed to users across their organization. Is there a process or tool in place in your organization for handling master data management today? You may find that there are pockets of solutions currently used in the business already, but if there's not one in place across the organization, we recommend starting the discussion around if one's required, who can take ownership for this, and if you want to engage a partner to help you with creating it. We just spoke about having a single repository for all customer details as an example for master data management. It's equally important that this master data and all other data assets are discoverable for self-service BI access. While tools like Azure Data Catalog exist to address this exact need, this is one of the key challenges that we come across, purely because this does require effort up front and an ongoing basis. Having said that, once the investment is made, the benefits are huge. An enterprise data catalog can be the one-stop shop for all enterprise data sources. Power BI report creators may have access to many different datasets, so enterprises need to guide them to the reliable, high-quality ones. As a dataset owner, you can promote your own datasets when they're ready for widespread usage. Your organization can also certify datasets that are the authoritative source for critical information. These datasets are featured prominently when report designers start creating a report and are looking for that reliable data. Do you currently have a catalog for all of your data sources or reports that exist today? If you're looking to drive self-service BI, it's very important to document the sources that you want end users to be able to use. Ideally, this would then be extended to include all data sources and any interdependencies. To make sure that all of this is documented, we recommend assigning an owner for the data catalog who could work with the various data source owners to collate this information into a central location. Another challenge that people find with self-service BI is the consistency in the definition of fields and metrics. There could be multiple reports that show the exact same fields and metrics, but the numbers may vary. It could be because of the way the field and its hierarchy have been defined, or due to a difference in the calculation. An enterprise data dictionary is the perfect solution for this. You agree the definition of fields and metrics once, and then everyone can access that definition and ensure consistency. A data dictionary acts as a single source of truth for defining business metrics. It should be easily accessible, searchable, and have an easy process for publishing. This can be implemented in many ways. For example, you can define fields in Azure Data Catalog, or you can use a SharePoint wiki site, or there are lots of options from our partners. In Power BI, you can define descriptions for fields and measures in the Modeling tab, so users can see more information when they are building a report. Do you currently have definitions for all of your key performance indicators, and does everyone use the same definition? we strongly recommend basing this dictionary on the master data managed and catalogued sources to make sure everyone knows the definition of something and it's using the same values. If one does not exist today, we strongly recommend creating a plan and assigning owners for creating this data dictionary. If you're looking for guidance on how to implement master data management, data cataloging, or data dictionaries, or want to see what solutions our partners can create for you, then please check out the marketplace. The link is in the description below. We've included a link to the slides used in this presentation in the description below. Thanks for listening, and if you have any feedback or questions, please leave a comment. See you in the next one.